Since as long as I can remember, people have always wanted video games to be more realistic. I think as people have watched games get more and more advanced, they've seen graphics improve, writing become more nuanced, and gameplay become more fluid, so realistic has always seemed like a natural endpoint to that progression. The drive towards realism has led to more powerful consoles, motion capture performances, huge increases in budgeting, and vastly different outlooks on what the art form can achieve. But is realism actually the be-all and end-all to what video games can be? Is it really the progression we want? Is realism actually a good thing for video games? It's been a little over a year since Rockstar Games released Red Dead Redemption 2, and the PC version is now finally out, meaning that everyone in the gaming community, including people playing on Stadia, can get a hold of this game. But what about Nintendo's? No! Get out of here! You're not allowed it! You're not strong enough, Nintendo. If you've listened to our podcast Podcoping, you'll know that I'm really not a huge fan of this game at all. And saying that last year felt like treading on eggshells because of course everyone loved this game, but looking back on it, it's actually the perfect example for me of how implementing too much realism can ruin a game. From a technical standpoint, this game is an absolute triumph. The visuals are some of the best I've ever seen in a game. The attention to detail in the world is brilliant. The fact that you can have so much stuff in the game on fairly out-of-date hardware at this point without the game stuttering or breaking is beyond comprehension. Bodies will stay where you've killed them and begin to decompose. Dirt will stay on you and your horse. Bloodstains are in the right place. And your horse's testicles even shrink and grow depending on the in-game weather. Okay, no, that one is ridiculous though, right? I'm just thinking about the poor guy at Rockstar whose job it was to program or animate that. But does all of this make a game better? Or more enjoyable? For me, not at all. Rockstar focused on making a historical, realistic, beautiful, impressive game, but for me, they forgot to make it fun. They directed so much focus on what the game can do that they forgot to focus on what the player can do in the game. And this, in the wider lens of video games as a whole, is where I believe that realism after a certain point actually makes games worse.
Why'd it have to come to this, huh?
Believe me, sir, I didn't want this either.
For me, there are three drawbacks with Red Dead 2's aggressive approach to realism. The first is the fact that the game feel isn't enjoyable in the slightest. When I began playing the game for the first time, I instantly noticed how bad the game felt to play. Maybe it was because I'd just played Marvel Spider-Man, or because the opening 2.5 hours are spent in very thick, real-feeling snow. But even going back to it now, walking around in this game feels like trudging through honey. Why are these walk cycles so slow? You might be thinking that it's because it's slow, deliberate movement, which is how cowboys walk, and okay, fine, I take that point, but the problem is this seeps into every bit of the gameplay. For example, shooting, which in this cowboy game does not feel good. Sure, it might feel realistic to how shooting was back then, because guns themselves were slower and harder to control, and that's fine, but this game on the whole controls so unresponsively, and my main point here is that you can make a game feel realistic, or make your character feel heavy, but develop them in a way so they feel responsive and satisfying to use. The best example is Kratos in God of War. He's a total heavyweight, but my god does he feel good to even walk around as, let alone fight as. Game feel is one thing, and to be fair, it's never exactly been Rockstar's strong suit, but another Rockstar trope that really pulls down the experience in Red Dead 2 is the mission design. Some people might complain that in GTA, all you do in missions is meet someone, drive somewhere for them, do something, then drive back, all the while listening to story dialogue. Well, as you've probably just noticed, in Red Dead 2, missions also follow this exact pattern. The mission design never gets more inventive than that. Except, you know how GTA has some of the best driving controls ever made? In Red Dead 2, you don't drive, you ride on a horse. I don't really want to get bogged down in explaining the differences in the player engagement or input in these two actions, so I'll just show you. What you're seeing right now is what a GTA player's hands are doing on the controller when they're driving somewhere in a mission. Notice how many buttons and fingers are involved, notice that there's lots to do, and it's a pretty engaging task that you yourself can improve on throughout the course of the game. This is what a Red Dead 2 player is doing when they ride a horse during a mission. That's it.
That's the whole kit and caboodle.
On top of that, GTA has an amazing soundtrack, and it's a stupidly underappreciated aspect of why driving around in GTA is so appealing. If nothing else, it's another thing to keep the player entertained on the journey from A to B. In Red Dead, radio hasn't been invented yet, so your only entertainment on horseback is, well, this. This mission structure might be realistic to how you'd go about things in real life, but mission design isn't supposed to add realism, it's supposed to keep things interesting.
Sure, I got some errands to run. Great. Go check the horses are ready.
A big part of how Rockstar implemented realism into Red Dead 2's gameplay was by putting a number of chores and tasks into the game. They've said that this is to really ground the player in the experience and the world, but for me, it actually had the opposite effect. When I say chores and tasks, I mean the average, mundane, everyday things that you would have to do in real life if you lived in Arthur Morgan's world. In the game, you have to feed your horse, pat your horse, clean your guns, upgrade your guns, chop the firewood, empty water cans, hunt for the camp, hunt for yourself, donate money for the camp, sleep, feed yourself, dress yourself, clean yourself.
Would you lack any assistance?
Okay, maybe you can get a little bit of help with that last one. Altogether, these things take time. A lot of it. So when you're not riding a horse or going out on a mission, chances are you'll be doing this. If you want to make this game more like a historical simulator, that's fine. But again, there are ways to do that without completely alienating your player by bogging them down in all of this. Include some of these things, sure, but don't have this many responsibilities because it starts to become so draining. The hell are the other camp members doing all day anyway? Seems like pretty much any of them could be chopping firewood or emptying a bucket of water. I don't know about you, but I have enough of these responsibilities to deal with in my own life. I don't want to have to worry about them in the game too. On the most part, people play games for escapism, to get away from the mundane, average, everyday things. But all of these things at once don't ground me in the world, they take me out of it because I ask myself how long it's been since I did something I wanted to do in the game. They're not even interesting mechanically. No cool, engaging minigames, no fun repetition or ways to improve throughout the game. You just hold a button and chop some firewood.
To be honest, if you lot hadn't been here, I probably would have robbed him.
Well, you did.
Red Dead 2 is set in 1899, a time when the Wild West is dying out and gunslinging outlaws are packing it all up to go home and be law-abiding citizens. You play as Arthur Morgan, a career outlaw who throughout the game has a change of heart and becomes a decent man. And I guess that's what the redemption in Red Dead Redemption is, but I couldn't really tell you. To implement this time period and character arc in the game, Rockstar added an honor meter at the bottom of the screen to show you how good or bad you're behaving. Make morally strong, ethical choices and the bar goes slightly up. Wait, no, it doesn't. What the hell? I'm doing so many nice things for people and this thing is straight up not moving. What is that? Oh, but do one bad thing and oh, there goes your honor level. Effectively, this honor meter is just the fun police. It might keep you aligned as a white hat or keep Arthur as a good boy, but it also stopped me from doing any cowboy activities that weren't part of the story. How many trains did you rob in the game? How many general stores did you hold up? Oh wait, you can't because you can't actually take your gun out when you're in a shop. Oh, but Duncan, it's about the West dying out. I don't care! Store robberies were still a real thing that happened in these times. They still are today. Let me play any other way than the realistic linear story way that you want me to, Rockstar. This is exactly my point with Rockstar focusing on what the game can do instead of what the player can do. Attaching the realism of Arthur's changing his ways into the story might be amazing character writing, but it also piles on the responsibility of doing things that aren't fun. I know games can present you with a character or let you make your own choices, but when a game is 100% realistic, it means the player feels they have to be Arthur, and what they want doesn't actually matter. And okay, you might not believe me that the game funnels you into certain ways of playing, but all of those chores I mentioned before, if you don't do them, this happens.
You stopped. You stopped working for us all. How'd you mean? No money in the box for H's. Come on, son. You're the best man among us.
Oh, great, yeah. Guilt the player into not having fun. Really solid stuff, man. In the end, Rockstar made an absolute showcase of how realistic a game can be. And like I said at the beginning, it may all be extremely impressive, but for me, some realism in video games is enough. For me, I'm okay with escaping to an in-game world that allows me not just to be, but to play. Thank you so much for watching! I know this is a pretty controversial take on a very popular game, so go ahead and tell me exactly what you think down in the comments below, and don't pull any punches. We are super close to our year-end goal for subscribers, so please make sure you subscribe and hit that bell icon to see more videos coming soon. If you want a full review discussion on Red Dead 2, or want to hear about how Rockstar is playing a very sneaky tax game, check out our podcast Podcoping. We end each episode with a random subscriber shoutout, so head on over to see if it's you. Thanks again so much for watching. I'm hopefully going to have more videos coming soon when I'm not snowed under with intense uni work, but until then, tune in next time.